Hi there, welcome to 8.3, Equilibrium and Energetic Coupling. So let's keep in mind our concepts of Gibbs free energy and entropy. And so let's now take into consideration equilibrium. When equilibrium is attained, G equals 0, which means there's no more energy in the system. And so here, if we have all of these pieces together, all of these molecules are close together, well, there's energy in this system because they're going to move out. They're going to create a concentration gradient and they're going to move away. And so here, there is greater entropy in the system. The pieces are further apart. They're taking up more space. There's more air. There's more ways in order for this energy to be arranged. However, there is no more concentration gradient. There is no more energy in this system. And so once equilibrium is reached, G equals 0. There's no more energy in this system. Well, so to demonstrate this concept, let's look at these tanks here. If you pour water into this tank, it's going to be an exergonic process. The water is going to spontaneously, it's going to flow down to the lower tank without any more input of energy. It's just going to happen. And it actually can do work as it's moving down. It can spin this turbine and light this light. And so until the water reaches equilibrium, so when all of the water has flowed through and down, then there's no more energy in the system. So once the water level is equal, this turbine is no longer going to be able to spin. And in order to get this water back up to the higher tank, it's going to take an input of energy, which will be an endergonic process. So the bulb turbine is a good analogy for life. When an organism has removed all of the energy from the glucose, there's no more glucose added, and there'll be no more fuel for the system. And this stops the metabolism, and this is a defining feature of life. So we are continuously putting water into this top tank and refueling ourselves in order to continue this turbine spinning or to fuel our metabolism. And so the reverse process of respiration is photosynthesis. And photosynthesis provides our systems with energy because it takes light energy from the sun and puts it into glucose. So there are three types of work that our cells do. Three kinds of endergonic work, I should say. So the first is chemical work. Chemical work is pushing endergonic reactions that would not occur spontaneously. So this is an example of making glucose through photosynthesis or making polymers from monomers. This isn't going to happen on its own. Monomers aren't going to just on their own polymerize. It takes energy to put two things together and to connect them. In order to put the energy from light energy from the sun into glucose, that takes work, that takes input. It doesn't just happen on its own. So that's chemical work. Transport work would be work across a membrane or up and against a concentration gradient. So that would be the things that we've seen like through neurons and nephrons when we've seen concentration gradients, and we create those concentration gradients by using active transport. Finally, mechanical work would be like beating cilia, so just things moving. And so to complete this work, exergonic reactions are coupled with endergonic reactions in a process called energetic coupling. In energetic coupling, an exergonic reaction drives an endergonic reaction, so you need one to fuel the other. And so here in this example, the exergonic reaction is the water flowing down the tanks, and it drives the endergonic process of the lighting the bulb. So it takes energy to light the bulb. So in processes like cell respiration, just like this is like cell respiration, except there are many tanks. So in cell respiration, there are many chemical reactions happening. And so to look at this, to see how this remains spontaneous, if the light bulb takes 6 kilocalories to fuel the lighting of the light bulb, and the water flowing is negative 7 kilocalories, well then there's negative 1 kilocal left, and therefore the change in G, or the delta G, is still negative. So remember, for something to be spontaneous, we need delta G to be negative. So if the endergonic is positive 6 and the exergonic is negative 7, so the energy flowing out of the water flowing is losing energy, but it's losing negative 7 kilocalories. And it only takes positive 6 kilocalories to light the light bulb. Well, then we still have negative 1 kilocal left, and this remains spontaneous. It will continue working. Many reactions within an organism, ATP in a phosphorylated intermediate, which let's call this an enzyme, will be coupled with another reaction to fuel an endergonic process. So let's make this a little bit more simple. We'll take ATP and that will combine with an enzyme, and that is going to fuel an endergonic process. It's going to do a job. So the phosphorylated intermediate, like we just said, is often an enzyme, which is responsible for building up or breaking down molecules in the cell. So anabolism and catabolism. In standard conditions, the hydrolysis or the breaking down of ATP is negative 7 kilocalories. So when we hydrolyze, when we remove the phosphate group from an ATP, it releases negative 7 kilocalories, or it releases 7 kilocalories. So there is energy being lost, and it is 7 kilocalories, and so delta G is negative 7. If a reaction requires less than negative 7 kilocalories, then ATP can be used to fuel this reaction. If it is more than negative 7 kilocalories, it cannot. So let's look at what this means. So in this scenario, we have reactants and we have products. So an enzyme is going to be used to remove the phosphate from the ATP and add it to the square, a phosphorylated intermediate. So here are our reactants, a triangle and a square, and our products is a little house. And so this process, it takes energy to put these two things together. So delta G is positive 5 kilocalories. And so this is going to be coupled with ATP and ADP, or ADP in a phosphate group, and combining to make ATP. And so in order to build this house, it's going to take ATP to donate its phosphate to the cause. So if ATP can give its phosphate group, it's going to release 7 kilocalories, or it'll be delta G negative 7. And so therefore, that's going to cover the cost of building this house, because it only costs 5 kilocalories. And so here we are still at delta G equals negative 2. We have extra energy left over. So here it is delta G negative 7, because there is, in the system of ATP, there are 7 kilocalories leaving that molecule, being donated exergonically to build this house. So an example of chemical work being done by ATP is the endergonic combination of glutamic acid and ammonia to make glutamine, which is done by an enzyme. And so this process is 3 kilocalories. And so we know that 3 kilocalories is going to be less than 7 kilocalories. And so when coupled with the process of ATP, donating a phosphate group to an enzyme, this is going to be covered. So let's look at this. This is the glutamic acid, is the triangle, and the ammonia is the square. And so when we put them together, that's glutamine. And so to build glutamine, if your body needs to build a glutamine, it's going to take 3 kilocalories to do it. And so ATP is going to donate its phosphate group, which is going to release negative 7 kilocalories. And so that covers the process. These are our coupled reactions. These two, 1, 2, become coupled, and these coupled reactions give us a delta G of negative 4. And so therefore the process remains spontaneous. And so ATP drives transport work by energetically coupling with a transport protein. So if we look at this picture here, the ATP, in order to move molecules against their concentration gradient, well, that is an endergonic process. It's going to require energy. And so ATP is going to donate its phosphate group. It's going to release 7 kilocals, and the 7 kilocals is going to open the enzyme or change the shape, which is going to allow for the molecule to be driven across or up its concentration gradient and released on the other side of the membrane. And so ATP can drive transport work, but it can also drive mechanical work. And so here, the ATP is going to donate the phosphate group, -7 kilocals, which is going to allow the motor protein once again to change shape. And changing shape takes energy. And so it's the ATP that gives it its energy. And so this is energetic coupling. I hope that this helps, and I will see you in class.